Detective Sergeant Jim Mooney of the Charlottesville Police Department. Detective Sergeant
This is an update on the search for a missing University of Virginia student. Let's listen in live. This is about Hannah Graham.
Since this investigation began late Sunday afternoon. Before I start, I want to give particular thanks to our partners at the University of Virginia Police Department for their help and their support, not only in this investigation, but every day. I want to thank the Virginia State Police, which was very quick to come to our assistance when this investigation began, and as we speak, are continuing to assist us, going over some electronic equipment and following up on investigative leads as they come in. I want to thank the local office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who also has been very aggressive in responding to us with their resources. They're helping us staff the tip line, and more than 100 tips have come in on this case, and they've been very helpful in helping us sort through those tips and to assign them accordingly. Also want to thank in advance the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who has reached out to Detective Sergeant Mooney. They'll be sending assets here to the city of Charlottesville. They're in the process of developing on our behalf a poster that will be widely disseminated, not just locally, but nationally. They're putting the fine touches on that poster, and once it is complete, we will blast it out to you as quickly as we can. I want to thank the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. They are taking the responsibility of conducting the area search, which is constantly expanding as we gather additional information, and partnered with them is the Albemarle Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue Team. Earlier this afternoon, I had the opportunity to sit with John and Susan Graham. Can't imagine as a parent and as a husband, I can't imagine what they're going through these past several days. And I got an opportunity to learn a little bit about their Hannah and how special, not only how special she is to them, but how special she is to so many other people who have reached out and touched them over the past several days to express their concern and their support, and to talk about their fond times with Hannah over the past several years in her life. We talked about Hannah's enthusiasm for life. We talked about her quest to be a good student, and Dad was telling me for 6 straight years and leading up to the University of Virginia, straight A's, and as far as I know, she's probably still achieving that at the university. An accomplished athlete, an alpine skier, good friend. So that's who we're looking for. We're looking for Hannah Graham. And I was privileged to have a few moments with her parents to get to know Hannah. And I assured them, and I'm assuring you today, that this department's focus is to find their daughter. First and foremost, to find their daughter, and by the grace of God, return her safely to their care and to the care of the university and all the friends that she has there. So let me give you a little chronology, where this began and kind of where we are today. Hannah met some friends for dinner on the University Corner on Friday evening. About 11 o'clock, she left the company of her friends. She was by herself. We believe that she proceeded to at least 2 other locations that were a short distance away. And when she left the second location, we believe that she lost her bearing. She was lost. She proceeded northbound on 10th Street Northwest, and eventually she's captured on video near McGrady's Pub. We've had an opportunity to examine that video. We know that from the location of McGrady's Pub, Hannah proceeds eastbound on Preston Avenue, where she is captured again by cameras located at the Preston Avenue Shell and at the Crossings residence. A short while later, an eyewitness sees Hannah proceeding southbound on 2nd Street from Market. She's headed towards the downtown pedestrian mall. Now, we've since recovered, or in the process, I believe, of recovering a video that we think will depict that as well from the area of 2nd Street. Again, I don't know that we've actually gotten our hands on that video, but we believe that it exists. Nonetheless, we have an eyewitness that sees her there. Now, about 90 minutes ago, maybe a little less, we received additional information that Hannah's image is again captured on video surveillance equipment on the downtown pedestrian mall. And at that time, she is seen proceeding southbound on the mall in this direction. We're still in the process of gathering that information, but we'll disseminate those videos as soon as we can get them. Again, we're in the process of gathering them and seeing exactly what we have. Now, we put out a plea to downtown merchants. Now, many of them have taken upon themselves to equip their businesses with video surveillance equipment. And so we reached out to them and we've asked them to preserve that equipment, to let us look and to see if there are any other images on Hannah so that we can see the direction of travel and perhaps discern if anyone may have been in the area that we may need to talk to or otherwise identify with regard to this investigation. Now, sometime on Sunday afternoon, Hannah's friends and family began to kind of compare notes. You know, Hannah, as I said before, was very conscientious about her grades, her schooling, and she spent a lot of time in the library. So my guess is when friends didn't see her on Saturday, they weren't particularly concerned. Wasn't that unusual? When Sunday afternoon came along and they started talking with each other and they reached out to family and Mom. Mom reached out to her son and said, you know, I haven't spoken to Hannah. Have you talked to her? And when he said no, he began investigating as well, and he reached out to friends. And by 5 or 6 o'clock Sunday evening, we were contacted and we initiated a report, and our investigation began. That investigation began by notifying investigators. Detective Sergeant Mooney and some of his investigative team came in. We called in a bloodhound. I believe it was Albemarle County's bloodhound, who walked the area where we believe she was last seen, somewhere up around the university, probably for 5 or so miles. That search did not yield favorable results. Nonetheless, we began interviewing witnesses, particularly those who last saw her. We began reaching out to other investigative resources. So suffice it to say, this investigation has been aggressive and will continue to be aggressive. Jim and his team have conducted, as I said, many interviews. We're in the process of seizing various videos that we think will be helpful. We've secured some electronic equipment that was in Hannah's apartment to see if that equipment may have information that will add value or perhaps direction to our investigation. We've conducted a widespread search not only of the university area, but as we've gathered additional information that brought us downtown, we brought in a bloodhound again yesterday who we believe provided us with some assistance in at least confirming Hannah's presence in the downtown area. And we're going to continue to use assets like that until such time as we bring this investigation to where I hope will be a very successful conclusion. Now, before I show you some video, and we're going to show you some of the video that we have and we've been able to process and we want you to see, and we're going to give you, I believe, that video on thumb drives so that you'll have it to take with you. But I'm going to read a statement that John and Susan Graham requested that I read on their behalf. And they're going to give you a copy of this statement, I believe, in your hand before you leave, if not shortly thereafter. Hannah is beyond precious to us, and we are truly devastated by her disappearance. It's totally out of character for us not to have heard from her, and we fear foul play. We are in constant contact with the Charlottesville Police Department and the University of Virginia. We have learned CPT has received many helpful leads from the public. We are very grateful for all information already provided and urge members of the public to continue to call the dedicated tip line with anything at all, however small it seems. We would also like to recognize the many messages of support we've received from Hannah's friends at the University of Virginia, her friends from high school, her band and softball team, as well as our neighbors, friends, and work colleagues, too many to count. Although we are British, Hannah has lived in Virginia since she was 5. This is her home, and we have always felt welcome here. We are so very grateful for everyone involved in the search for Hannah, and like you, we will not rest until we find her and she comes home. Once again, if you have any information at all, however insignificant it may seem, please call 434-295-3851. Thank you, John and Susan Graham. So we'd like to show you these videos and ask that you pay particular attention to them, and we need your assistance when pushing these videos out to the community. And I can't reiterate enough what Mr. and Mrs. Graham has said in their comments. We need the help of this entire community. If anyone has any recollection of anything they might have seen or heard on Friday night into Saturday morning during that critical time period of 1 o'clock to any point thereafter, we really need them to take the time to call this tip line so we have an opportunity to debrief with them and hopefully gather some additional information. So Jim, would you mind stepping up to the podium and walking them through these videos so they know what they're looking at?
Here's a laser pointer.
Could you state your name and your position, sir?
It's Detective Sergeant Jim Mooney.
Thank you.
Ms. Graham's going to come into focus kind of in this area over here. Initially she's walking westbound on Preston Avenue. It turns into Grady here. This is Ms. Graham. She'll cross the street. She'll pause briefly at this area and continue walking westbound. This is, of course, McGrady's Pub. This is their outdoor seating area. A number of patrons still there. And she'll come out on this side here and continue westbound. And then approximately 2 minutes later, the next clip, we'll see her come back into focus here in this same area, at which time she'll come up the sidewalk towards the front entrance of McGrady's. Right here. And she walks along the sidewalk and she approaches the front entrance. She does not make entry into the restaurant, and you'll see her leave down these steps and then go eastbound on Preston Avenue. She stops briefly here and then continues eastbound on Preston Avenue. And you lose sight of her about here, but we believe she continued eastbound on Preston Avenue. The next video I'll show you from a local gas station in the 600 block of Preston Avenue, which is east of McGrady's. In this area here, this is the railroad overpass, and Miss Graham is running eastbound in the 600 block. She stops here briefly and continues to walk. He's playing it backwards right now. slows to a walk here, and we believe continues eastbound based on other video evidence that we've recovered.
So that's where we are right now with our investigation, and that might change in the next 15 minutes. We might look at some of the video that we've are in the process of recovering, and may shed more information as to her continued direction of travel. And our job is to make sure that that information gets in your hands as we get it. So as we move forward, we want to try to be timely with getting information to you. I realize some of you come from a long distance, but there will likely be other briefings like this in the days, and I hope not weeks. I hope in the days to come. I hope we're able to find Hannah and to bring her home safely. But we're going to need everyone's help, the entire community's help to accomplish that. I just can't say that enough. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions to the extent that I can, and if I can't, I'll explain to you why. Yes, sir.
Chief, does it concern you that in the second video she appears to be running?
Initially, yes, but she stops. And in the subsequent video depictions, it does not appear, at least at that point, that she's being pursued. You know, that railroad bridge, oftentimes there are folks that will congregate under that bridge up into towards the top, towards Albemarle Street, and it may well be that she was somewhat frightened by those who might have been gathered and maybe picked her pace up a little bit, but she does stop at some point. But yes, initially when we saw that, certainly it gave us some pause for concern.
Do you
Yes,
have any inclination from the pictures in the video that she's disoriented? Can you talk about that?
Well, you saw the video, so you can reach your own conclusions as to whether you think the video depicts disorientation. I know that during the course of the investigation early on, Captain Pleasance, I believe, shared this in some of his press briefings. We had reason to believe that she may have been under the influence of alcohol, but I think it's extremely important to point something out. Folks have gone very quickly to that issue and have attacked the character of this young lady, and I think unfairly. The reason why that information from an investigative standpoint is important, one, is to suggest the fact that she was vulnerable, that she may not have been in a position to protect herself or defend herself. And so we thought it important to get that information out publicly. Secondly, it also speaks to the fact that she not only that she was vulnerable, but that she may not have been in a position to make good decisions. And so we just want to make clear that while we have information in that regard, we put that out there for investigative reasons, and I just find it unfortunate that folks are latching on to that and speaking poorly of this young lady's character, an individual they don't even know. Yes, ma'am.
From surveillance video you've seen today from the downtown mall, do you have reason to believe someone may have been following her?
I have not seen the video from the mall. I just know that it exists. Once either I had an opportunity to examine or Detective Sergeant Mooney, then we'll be happy to respond to that. Okay. To the extent that other people may be in that video, I think it might be an unfair characterization to say that she was being pursued until we have an opportunity to examine it. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Courtney.
The sighting of her on the mall, you described it as she's headed south, which means that she's crossing the mall, not walking lengthwise? The
initial eyewitness spotting and the video that we believe exists that we have not yet recovered was the 2nd Street crossing.
Right.
However, we have video of her coming eastbound.
Coming eastbound on the bricks?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we have not yet, we're in the process of recovering that video. Yes, ma'am.
Have you pinpointed where she sent her last text from, saying that she was lost in that particular neighborhood that, in fact, wasn't where she was?
There were numerous texts sent, and we do have copies of those text messages. I don't know whether we've been able to determine precisely where that message may have been sent from. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Chief, that statement that you read from the parents, they said that they fear foul play. Yesterday, the department told us that there was no reason to suspect foul play. Has something changed?
I can't speak for the parents. As a parent, I'd be very concerned. But we don't have any substantive evidence to confirm that. But, you know, they're speaking from their heart. Yes, ma'am.
It's been nearly 5 years since Morgan Harrington disappeared. We've had other young women go missing, some of them murdered. Are these statistically more common in this area than elsewhere? Do you feel like you might have a serial killer at work, or is this kind of par for the course in college towns?
Well, I'm not going to speak what's par for the course in college towns, and I will say that some of the incidents that you relate were not just incidents that occurred in the city of Charlottesville, but in the surrounding area. With respect to Morgan Harrington, certainly the question has arisen as to the relationship perhaps between these two incidents, and it's certainly a very legitimate question. I will tell you right now, my focus is on Hannah Graham in this investigation, and to follow the facts and circumstances of this investigation. If there comes a time where we believe that there's a substantive link between those two investigations, we'll certainly share that with you. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, it seems like the one thing that might be similar, in fact, maybe that they both might have been looking for a ride. If there is any sort of connection, have you at all looked into taxi companies, in this case?
Jim and I have not had that discussion specifically, but I would be surprised if that has not taken place.
That's occurred.
Chief,
Yes, ma'am.
just in speaking to local business owners today, a lot of them are saying that there's not only a heavy police presence on a Friday or Saturday night, but this area is very populated. And I think what a lot of people are wondering is that it appears that this young lady just almost seemed to vanish into thin air. Can you speak to that on a heavily populated Friday evening, and you've got these surveillance videos, and then poof, she's gone?
Well, I can't speak to that because I don't know how many people were present at the point that she physically disappeared. I will tell you that it consistently frustrates me when incidents occurred in a highly populated... I mean, we saw... How many people did you see in that video at McGrady's? I don't know how many phone calls we've gotten from people at McGrady's that may have seen her, but I'd be very disturbed that someone on this downtown mall did not see that young lady and has not yet called the police to report it. And so we're hoping that there were people on the mall, and I'm hoping that they're hearing my words and seeing my frustration and hearing the pain that this family is experiencing, and pick up the phone and tell us something, regardless of how insignificant you think it might be. Courtney, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. You're doing searches, obviously, in various places based on whatever information you have. Have you, or would it ever happen that you request people just to search their property?
Thank you. Ronnie and I were driving today, and I asked that question. I said, do you think it might be useful to say to folks, particularly parcels of land that are large, outside the city of Charlottesville, farms, other such pieces of property? Yes, I think it would be more than appropriate. In fact, I think it's appropriate to ask individuals to assist us by looking at on your own property, by doing a thorough inspection. I would say that if you discover anything on your property that you feel we would want to be aware of, do not touch anything, don't do anything to contaminate what otherwise could be evidence that we could use to help identify a person responsible. But please inspect your property, and not just the outlying areas, but here in the city as well, particularly if you know you own a piece of property that's vacant. Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us what the FBI's role is currently in this investigation?
Support. Yes, sir.
Has the area where Morgan's remains were found been checked, just in case there is some kind of connection?
Jim?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You said there were multiple texts sent from her phone. What were the nature of those texts? Were they all about, hey, I'm lost, or was she saying different things?
They were a variety of different things. There was a particular text that would lead us to believe that she was lost, that she had turned herself around. But as to the specific substance of the text, I prefer not to go into them in any great detail. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that her parents said it was out of character for her to not be in contact with them, but then you also mentioned her friends were not alarmed Saturday when they hadn't heard from her. Can you speak to that again? What were her normal activity on a Saturday that they weren't that alarmed?
Well, I guess, quite frankly, a lot of that is supposition on my part based on my discussion with her parents as to the timeliness of notification. It isn't unusual in my experience, as you can imagine, that, you don't see your friend for a 24-hour period. You don't have any real reason to be concerned about it. But I can tell you there did come a point in time on Sunday where between friends and family, folks began to compare notes. And I think Mom, thank God for Mom's intuition to say, let me call my son and see if he's heard. And I think that's really what triggered this, is Mom's call to her son to say, have you heard from Hannah? And then all the pieces started to come together. But I really can't, again, I apologize, it's perhaps supposition on my part that her friends, I can't imagine that if they weren't concerned on Saturday that they wouldn't have made the call. Yes, sir.
What is the nature of the search patterns going to be going on from here out?
Well, that depends on the information we get. I can tell you that the search patterns expanded from the university area up the railroad tracks back towards I guess that would be a southwesterly direction, up back towards Wild Wings. I know that the first search that took place was in the general university area and the tracks northbound.
Yeah, the 14th, 15th Street area is continuing up to all through that area, up to the university, the Rugby Road, Grady Avenue, all that area's been covered.
Now, based on what we learned yesterday, there was some search activity down along the railroad tracks here in this part of the city, and depending on what we learned from the video, the search might expand. And lots of folks have reached out and said, what we're able-bodied persons, what can we do to help in that regard? Call us, we'll connect you with VDEM, the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, their search teams, so that you can work in tandem with them. They'll go over certain procedures that you might not think about, such as if you stumble across something, don't pick it up. And so rather than have folks go out unilaterally and aside from their own properties, of course, and conduct these searches, we'd rather team you up with someone who's appropriately trained so we can get the most efficient job done. I thought I saw it. Yes, Henry? I'm sorry.
Can you talk about how beneficial the surveillance camera video has been? Because you really have been to date able to track her almost all the way down the streets.
How long have I been saying that, right? Yeah. How long have I been saying that video surveillance is huge in the retrospective investigation of crime? Thank God for the merchants. Thank God for people who have taken it upon themselves to equip their own properties with video surveillance equipment, and look how beneficial it's been in this case. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us if Hannah sent any text to the effect that she was scared, that she was in distress?
I don't, of course you're reading a text message. Much like reading an email, you can't always get the emotion in it. I was not left with that impression. Again, one of the entries suggests to me that she wasn't familiar with where she was, but I didn't get a sense that there was fear. Courtney?
Said she was at dinner with friends on the corner, then left the company of her friends. Did she connect with any other friends at later locations?
At the two locations that I spoke of, she did connect with others. Yes, ma'am. I saw a hand over here, ma'am.
After she sent the text that she was lost in that sort of area, did people try to search for her, any of her friends?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't have any direct knowledge of that, but not that I've been told. Yes, ma'am.
Do we know where she had been drinking, and is there reason to believe she had a false ID since she was underage?
I have no idea where she may have consumed alcohol. Yes, ma'am.
Could there be anything else that she might have taken besides alcohol, any other drugs that might have made her disoriented, do you know?
Not that anyone has knowledge of, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Has there been any discussion with police departments from surrounding counties for the fact that this is the third disappearance of a woman this summer in Central Virginia?
What happens is, in this case, it was with a couple hours, this information's entered into the Virginia Crime Information Network and NCIC, so the information is accessed throughout the state. So yeah, it does get put into the system. Yes, sir.
Did she tell any of those friends after she left the dinner, did she tell them via text where she might be headed later that night?
I don't know that I recall seeing it specifically in the text messages, but there was discussion amongst the friends to where they would meet up with at a later time.
So there was a plan to meet up later with
That's correct. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if she was familiar with the downtown mall? Some students pretty much live in a bubble and just stick to the corner. Has she ever been, to your knowledge?
I don't know the answer to that question. No, ma'am.